Hello and welcome back to Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Pod, where I'm your host, Gary Howard. We'll be talking about a murder that I found during my 10-hour break at some of the truck stops I stop at, or in this case, will be in my yard, where I was at in Joliet, Illinois. And as always, it would be so helpful if you do like what you hear, please share with a friend, and that person could share, and let's just spread this. And of course, go to iTunes where you could rate and review Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Pod. Would be greatly appreciated. Let's help this make this thing grow. And like I said, today's episode was coming from my yard instead of a truck stop. Now next week I'll be going back to the yard because I do come to my yard a lot in Joliet, Illinois. But before I even say anything about the crime, the yard, or anything, I gotta ask everybody what is going on in the United States today or the world. This coronavirus really got everybody up on going crazy. And the only thing I'm gonna ask y'all a question, maybe if you could get back with me on my website, you can find me on the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Truck Stop Murder. I've been trying to ask everybody logically, what does having a clean asshole have to do with prevent you from? If you have an answer for me, that's fine. But all the racks are. Went to Walmart today over here in Rochelle, Illinois, where I'm at right now at the Road Ranger in Rochelle, Illinois. That's where I'm at. I decided to go down to the Walmart and see if it's actually true what I've heard, seen on news. But yep, everything I heard was true. There's no toilet paper, no baby wipes, no paper towels, no nothing. That I mean, they weren't totally out of stuff. They were just out of stuff that dumb things. There was still food there, but they were very low. There was no eggs, of course. There's water was going out. It was crazy. But I was able to get some stuff that I needed. I need to stock up my truck anyhow. But enough about that. But yeah, if you know why people the toilet paper, I can understand everything else, but the toilet paper was baffling me. How is having keep clean asshole prevent you from getting coronavirus? Please tell me your opinion or view on it on Truck Stop Murder on Twitter and Facebook. Or you can email me at gary.howard5@yahoo.com with that information. So, the case that I found today is Christopher Vaughn. And as I was researching this, I was trying to figure out why wasn't this more well known in the podcast community, not really covering this. Come to find out, while this was going on, it wasn't really bringing much attention to it because of Drew Peterson was going on at the same time. Matter of fact, in the courtroom right next door to where this person was. In fact, they even shared the same personnel, court people. So, and plus with Drew Peterson, it was more cases because this lawyer really promoted it. Every day they were in front of the Joliet courthouse talking about his case, so he was kind of overshadowed by this person. But this person was Christopher Vaughn, where he had, well, I'll get into it. Let's talk about his family. So his wife, Kimberly Vaughn, and Kimberly and Christopher Vaughn, there was told it was made an odd couple. The friends say she was ebullient social. Well, let me get further into this. This is a case that I found while I was in Joliet. Now, this didn't actually happen in Joliet in my yard, but it was nearby. So I do try to do cases that surround it. But this idiot, this asshole, was convicted of killing his family, which I will further get into. And if this is something that you might want to know, learn about, since it was, like I said, it was really not a big thing. I tried to look it up, but not too much came up on it. But Christopher and his wife, Kimberly. So let's get into the storyline. Kimberly and Christopher Vaughn made an odd couple, friends say. She was an ebullient social butterfly with $1 million smile. He was tantrum and withdrawn, occasionally given to anger conversations. So they married right after they met at a miniature golf course, and had 3 charming, well-mannered children not too long after that. The kids became the center of Kimberly Vaughn's life, while her husband advanced in his career in computer security, like cybernet, computer, stuff like that, which that's what basically his career was based around, which bounced him around the country here and there, which I'll get into. So Christopher Vaughn, 2 years younger than his wife, went to Francis Howell High School across town, playing on a soccer team and joining the National Honor Society. They married only a year after he graduated. Their first child, level-headed, artistic Abigail, was born November 1994. And 15 months later was Cassandra, a fun-loving girl. And then they had their son, Blake, which is sweet, bookish, was born in 1999. So they have their 3 kids. They doing life good. Kind of like myself, but the only thing is I have 2 girls and 1 boy, where he had 2. Well, actually, he did have 2 girls and 1 boy, so it's the same. But my boy was kind of like the middle. That was a time where they moved to St. Peters, Missouri, near St. Louis. Kimberly Vaughn struck her neighbors as a chatty and delightful person who was always playing with her children. Where Christopher Vaughn doted on her but otherwise kept to himself. He was one of them hard people. When he interacted with the neighbors, he could be unpleasant, which was Leonard, who was one of his neighbors who lived on the same Missouri subdivision as Vaughn said. He was hammering one day in his garage at 9:30 one night when Christopher Vaughn came over in a rage and confronted Leonard's wife about the noise, nearly reducing her in tears. So finally, in 2001, according to public records, the family sold their house in St. Peters, moved to Shamuish. I know I've been trying to figure this out. Sam Amish, SAMMAMISH. I won't keep saying Sandwich, Washington. I know that's not, but it's an outpost of Seattle, just up the road from the headquarters of Microsoft. There, where the family, Christopher Vaughn, got a private investigator's license and set up a company where he named Stonebridge Security that specialized in preventing cyber crimes. Neighbor Kelly Taylor, which when people that lived, said he appeared to be successful, winning contracts from banks to keep their internet transactions safe. Christopher was also well known as being good at what he did, because there was a lot of there was not too many people doing what he was doing out there. What he said. So the family lived in a clapboard house in a cul-de-sac set among towering pines and friendly kid-oriented neighborhood, where Kimberly Vaughn showed exceptional devotion to her children. She helped out the elementary school and kept an eye, as I was saying, kept an eye on them when they were playing outside. So she was kind of like the neighborhood mother who kept an eye on the kids while they were playing, make sure nothing happened, all while displaying a cheerfulness that was distraught contrast to her husband. So she was totally opposite of her husband, where she was really friendly and neighborly, where he pretty much just kept to himself, kind of isolated person. So one of neighborhood Trish Brock said Christopher Vaughn would keep to himself at gatherings, and at times he detected darker notes in the couple's relationship. So he was always a little bit, for my taste, domineering. Some would say controlling. She said kind of old-fashioned, like I was saying. There's maybe a better way to explain it, how he was. So, like one time, he was like, hello, it's 6 o'clock, dinner. I don't see it on the table. And then he was sort of snicker, like he was kidding, but she knew he wasn't. He was just trying to do that to keep face, so later on he'd be like, I was not yelling at you, I was just wondering where dinner was, I was joking, blah blah blah. But she knew that he wasn't kidding. Another neighbor, Kim Mohania, I feel like Jimmy Wisman on these names, Moynihan. If you don't know who Jimmy Wisman is, let's take a break for this. If you do like true crime and stuff like that, he's a co-host with James Petrogallo on Small Town Murder and True Crime and Crime and Sports. I almost said my podcast. Well, you can listen to mine too. There you go. What really got me going on this with the true crime and different things. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be this. So, anyhow, let's move on. So, Kim Mayhem said Kimberly Vaughn once looked into a intern position, trying to keep her busy to learn the ropes for about forensic investigations, but dropped the idea when her husband wanted her to stay with the children. Chris Brown was a gun owner and enthusiastic outdoorsman, so he liked it all. I think this is where the tides actually turned once he was in Washington, because he realized, because he was not too far from Canada, which that was his dream, to be like a frontiersman, live out in the woods of the Yukon in Canada. So I think this is where he really started it. So he was really enthusiastic outdoors, and the neighbors said he tried to interest his wife in hobbies by taking her shooting range along with bow hunting, which I'm gonna say right now that she was definitely better. I love my wife, but there's no way in hell that I'm gonna take her to the range. And bow hunting, hell no. She is not taking no part in no bow hunting, no part in no hunting. If she don't like to do it, she ain't doing it. But I still love her. And she actually, back to Christopher Vaughn, she actually put on the camo. She actually put on the, like I said, camouflage outfit. She poured deer pee on her head and went out and roughed it for a couple of days. They said, yeah, she's really trying to really get into what he likes to do, trying to like what couples do. So the family time in Washington ended in 2005. Taylor said they moved to Chicago, which brings where we're at, after Christopher Vaughn was recruited to work with Naviga Consulting Computer Forensics. Stoneridge Security still appeared to owe, they still appear to owe state workers, which I haven't really figured that out yet. But there were some composition taxes, everything. He said the department he was ordered audit determined the exact figures. The Vaughns sold their Washington house for $446,000. Wow, almost $120,000 more than what he initially paid for it, and stayed in a two-story apartment. So this guy, he definitely knew what he. I mean, he was definitely a smart man. He was definitely not an idiot by all means. So while they were trying to find their stable house, they lived in an apartment in Aurora before buying a large $417,000 house in Oswego in May of 2006. The Vaughns took out two mortgages nearly equal to the purchase of the house, according to public records. With Christopher Vaughn focused on his job, which included regular travel to Mexico and Canada, Kimberly Vaughn established herself as a social whirlwind. So she was out there. If she was there, she was everywhere. She interacted with the neighbors. She acted as part of school. She was just one of the mothers who do that. So neighbors said that she was always online courses in criminal justice of the University of Phoenix. So she was actually even bettering herself. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't one of the mothers that wanted to sit back and just be barefooted pregnant at home. She wanted to better herself, so therefore both of them. So if anything happened, better than mine. So, and also it's a good thing for the kids to see their mother really want to progress Nate as well. So Nick, it said, so back she was going to the University of Phoenix. Said her sister, said Nikki as her older sister. By the way, she does have a twin sister, which I'll get at later on during the trial. So on June 9th, her family said she marched in the graduation ceremony, and there she only had 1.5 credits left to do, but they still allowed her to go ahead and graduate, which I think I'll show you a picture of. I'll put a picture of it on social media about this. It looked like a wonderful family. Everybody's happy. Christopher Undo happy. She got her degree. Everything's happy until the day of, let's see, where everything just fell apart for them until the morning of June 14th, 2007. So, the morning of the 14th of June 14th, 2007. So, probably about 5:14. Well, let's start off how the day went. They woke up the kids early in the morning and decided, let's go on a family vacation. So they were heading to a water park that was in Springfield, Illinois. So they woke up, got the kids up, ready to go, and off the road they went, which is not a far drive from Chicago to Springfield, Illinois. It's only about roughly about 3.5 hours for if they take 55 south. So let's jump to that morning of 14th of June 2007. So at 5:40 that morning, Christopher Vaughn was stood bleeding near his vehicle parked on the shoulder of Interstate 57 in Shanahan Township, Illinois. He waved down the motorist, who discovered that the wounded man had been shot in the left wrist and left thigh. Vaughn's wife Kimberly and her three children were inside the 2004 Ford Expedition. They had all been shot to death. The motorist called 911, got the police out there. So Christopher Vaughn's gunshot injuries turned out to be glancing bullets, so really not bad. Wounds were very minor. After being treated and discharged from the hospital in Joliet, he submitted to questioning by officers of the Illinois Police Department. Vaughn said his wife. Now here's where the story is different. Like there's always, well, most people say there's like three, four. There's actually just two sides of the story. There's his story, or a person's story, and the truth. So Vaughn said, this is his story so far. He said that his wife, because I forgot to say this, but she was having a lot of, she gets a lot of migraines, and anxiety, depression, stuff like that. So she was taking a lot of medication for that. Some of the medication that she took would say sometimes will, suicidal tendencies in it. But a lot of the neighbors or friends didn't say she really showed that. So the medicine sometimes will make her sick. So Vaughn said that his wife asked him to pull over the road because she was feeling ill because of it. After bringing the car to a stop, now keep in mind this is all his story, he went out and climbed out to the vehicle to check the luggage and tried to tie the rack, make sure everything was secure on the SV. So when he got back in the vehicle, that's when she shot him twice with a pistol, close range, but the wounds were just superficial. Kind of wonder what happened. And then he managed to get out of the vehicle. He went fleeing for his life, he states, where then once out of the line of fire, he heard the gun go off several more times from the inside the vehicle where he was just at. When he returned to the vehicle to check that his family was dead, he found that his wife had what he claims that he found that his wife had murdered his children and turned the gun on him, pretty much suicide and mass murder, where they actually found bullets in all three children, where they found one in the head and one in the stomach. And matter of fact, I'll get more into the once I get into the trial, where he said, like I said, he was defending for his life. So they brought him down to the police station to question him about it all, where they said that he was really not worried. He didn't seem worried about his family. He was more concerned about himself and stuff, like went and talk, real low voice and stuff like that. In fact, while being investigated, some of the investigators, in fact, when the police pulled up, everybody was saying that they were hard not to tear up because it was such a gruesome sight. And of course, any time when there's a child or young baby murdered, or anybody murdered, but especially when it's his children, I noticed a lot of society really gets sad about that. So when they brought him to they questioned him in interrogation, and he was just running around in circles. So eventually one of the police officers pulled out a picture of his kids and said, let me hold you this. You look at this, that's your family. And he went and testing. Finally, he just crumpled. He goes, didn't want to talk about it. Crumpled, and the police officer actually got mad and said, don't you fucking touch my pictures. Or eventually he kind of, which I don't know why he did, he apologized for his actions. But because they didn't really have nothing to hold him on, they just took his story and everything and let him go. Weeks later on, right afterwards, he had took off to Missouri because you just can't keep him when they have no evidence, they have no proof, they're nothing, and they have not did an investigation yet. So they released him because they couldn't hold him, and said, stick around, we might have to ask you some more questions later. Where he had went to Missouri, getting ready for the funeral arrangements and stuff like that. So he left. So they, after the further checking out the car, they brought the car. They found out that while at the police station, they did actually test his clothes. They did all the hands, all that stuff. So in other investigations, stuff like that, found out that his story did not add up to what the forensic evidence proved. There's blood spatter on the jacket. There's blood spatter here, where the gun was located at. Then actually, because Kimberly was right-handed. And they said that she had fired with her left hand, where he mentioned, which is totally false. There's all the evidence proved that it was nothing more than murder. Because there was blood on him where it shouldn't have been. The gut was where it wasn't should be, and the story's crazy. And actually, on my Facebook page, I actually posted. I was able to go to his location where it was at. If they had pulled off on the side of the road, they would have pulled off, and it's right there, right south of 80 on 55. I don't quite know the road of it right now, but it's like about the third exit. So he could have went off the feeder road and stayed on the feeder road, but where it is located at, you would have to turn off the highway, feeder road, and everything, going on to a service road and pull into. So it was out of the way. So he had, I believe, he had planned this out with the murder and everything like that. So finally, they went and found him. He was in Missouri, where he gave up without, bring him back. So the trial started about 2012, not too long after. So on September 20th, 2012, following a 5-week trial, talking about the forensic evidence, stuff like that, for 6 hours of closing arguments, the jury, after a 50-minute deliberation, returned a verdict of course. I almost said you sir may fuck up, but that's not my podcast. But anyhow, he said, "Be gone with you, guilty on all 4 counts." But here's the thing about that. At the time, Illinois did not have a death penalty, which the judge really they probably wouldn't have went that path. But in 2006, they had abolished the death penalty, so the only thing he get was life in jail. So the judge said before imposing the sentence was very frustrated. He said he was very frustrated by the state legislature's restrictions on parent reference to Illinois, like I said last year, to get rid of the death penalty. He said there isn't a punishment that fixed the crime, states the attorney said. You could lock him up for 500 lifetimes. It would not compensate for the victims in the case of the family murders. So with the judge, this is what they concluded that what happened, where they had woke up that morning, because keep him at the time he was really wanting to be live out in the woods in the Yukon, so like that, but unfortunately his family was in the way. So his plan was to wake up that morning and go to the water park, like I had said earlier, and leave, and that's when he was going to accept this whole plan was in motion, which was a horrible plan to begin with. So they pulled off on the side of the road. Maybe she was sick or something like that, I don't know, but the kids were in the back sleeping, because they got up like about 4 o'clock in the morning. They were ready to go. So what happened was, according to evidence, proving that when they pulled over, he had reached over and put the 9mm underneath her chin and shot his wife Kimberly, and then turned around, and each of the kids has shot, Abigail, shot one in the head and one in the belly, and then just went along with Cassandra to Blake, just shot, each one was shot in the head and the belly. And that's when he did the wound to himself and decided that his wife, because of the medication, everything, that she was a suicide murderer, and tried to put it on her, where he did have a life insurance policy on her where he was the sole benefit. And at the time, he was collecting a lot of survival outdoor, equipment, so like tents, camping gear, stuff like that, because his plan was to go out to the Yukon and live it up. So during the trial, actually, even Kimberly, a lot of people testified about him, talking about what type of person he was. Like Kimberly's father, Dale Phillips, said the family never saw a sign of Christopher Vaughn was dangerous, like most killers, but he always seemed unemotional. He wasn't really into that. He says, I don't think he felt the way we felt about our grandchildren, said Phillips, who said he had hoped to hear some explanation or apology from Vaughn. Well, keep in mind, during this gone, he never felt apologetic. As a matter of fact, when he was at the police station, after the investigation, they came out where the paramedics was kind of helping him out, attending to his wounds. He was actually talking BS, because they could, through the two-way mirror, he was like, oh, they're playing good cop with me, everything. He was not really taking it seriously. Never asked about how his kids was doing, never asked what life. Matter of fact, in one moment, they asked him, your 3 kids, your wife and 3 kids are dead. He goes like, no, they're not. They can't be. The total denial, and really talked about it. In fact, in leaving, he was not concerned about the well-being of his kids or wife. He was more concerned about his clothes that he was wearing and his boots, He was worried that it might be blood on his boots. That was the type of person he was. Very unemotional, did not care about his family, but he was something that he wanted to get out of. Instead of leaving, he decided to take him out. And like I told you, Kimberly, his wife, she was just graduated from, so he could have left. She would have took care of herself, and then everything was moving good for him until this day, like I said. So, and then his daughter Abigail, what people called Abby, was 12. She was an accomplished student, an athlete who had just begun wearing eye makeup, who was slain while clutching a Harry Potter book. A Harry Potter book. She was just a little kid, and a stuffed animal. Cassandra, or they called Sandy, was 11, was an animal lover who was trying to persuade her mom, let her start a dog walking business. So yeah, really outgoing kids, was killed next. And Blake, a kind-hearted boy who loved baseball, and an outsized vocabulary, was saying less. So he just went from the oldest to youngest. Apparently, after raising, the kid, his son Blake, actually saw it coming. So they saw that he was actually trying to defend himself, you know. And as a father of 3 kids, I just don't see how an individual would do this. It just seems crazy. So here's where it's getting kind of crazy. On Tuesday, Kimberly's identical twin sister, imagine how she feels. Jennifer Ledbetter was her name, explained that she feared her looks. So because of this, it put her in like a self-emotional thing about the way she looked, because her personality traits and her looks and personality traits was a painful reminder of the rest of her family about Kimberly's absent and violent death. So anytime she looks in the mirror, she's going to see her sister. Every time her family looks at her, she's going to see her. Maybe they might not, but that's what maybe goes on her mind. She said, it crushes my heart, she said, be separated from her sister. They both would have turned 40 the following month after the trial. So later, her eyes later flashed in anger and seemed to look at Christopher during the trial. This is while the trial was going on. And spoke of the betrayal by a man welcomed into our life and loved as a family. So they did like him, and our hearts ache with the knowledge that they were priceless to everyone, but the one man who should have loved them more than his own life. Which like I said, I can understand that, having kids myself, which I will do without before they do without, by all means, and to include my wife Desra. She said, of the 4 of her family members. So while he was sitting there, that was the first time he had, when his twin sister, I don't know because he saw his wife in her, but this is the first time he actually showed any kind of emotions about this. The awkward time during the hearing. He looked back over his shoulder and family during led the courtroom to sentencing. So let's get to the sentence where he got 4 because of the death sentence. There was no longer no death sentence. Actually, I remember this. I think it was like I said, 2006. Where they got rid of all death penalty. All death penalty people that was on death penalty was switched over to life in prison without no parole. So what he got was 4 life sentences without parole. So back to the whole court thing. None of the detectives questioned Vaughn about the murder-suicide scenario. They were convinced that he had murdered his family. They then strategically, I'm sorry, I'm mush mouth. Got that from Dan Cummins, which is another podcast I listen to called Time Suck, and he also has Scared to Death podcast. And also there's some 2 podcasts, or you can just be a spade listener. You can listen to Sick or Suck. Like I said, these are podcasts I like to talk about because they're the ones who really got me into it. There's other ones, but at that time, that's where Convicted Murder I do like. There you go. You'll find it fascinating. So none of the detectives questioned Vaughn about the murder-suicide. They were convinced that he had murdered his family. Oh, yeah, now I remember where I got that. I got about my mush mouth like Dan Cummins. Well, he's very entertaining. What the officers didn't know why this seemingly radical but emotionless man had committed mass murder, or how they would be able to prove it without an eyewitness or a confession. But the course of forensic science proved different than what he was saying. This case looked like a cold-blooded mass murder committed by a killer with nerves of steel, according to them. So, according to Will County forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy, Kimberly Vaughn had been shot under her chin, like I said. Then the killer had shot the children in their chest and heads. Their death was ruled homicides. So on June 20th, 2007, of course, the members of police, back to the child where before everything happened, they had seized a lot of his computer stuff and stuff like that in his home at Oswego. This is one of the reasons what really kind of helped it go along. 3 computers and several boxes full of personal items, included in the things removed from Vaughn family dwelling, was a magazine containing an article to how to make a murder look like a suicide. Flag 1. The detective also learned that the suspect had purchased a handgun used in any killings in the state of Washington, and that on the day of the murder he had practiced shooting, shooting the fire range and everything, kind of like another case that I know, which I'm not going to detail about it, where she got busted. My wife's cousin Rhonda, before she had murdered her ex-husband at the time, she actually went to ranges and shot, practiced shooting, and she actually told an instructor, how do I use this weapon in this scenario, and explain to the whole scenario. Eventually, maybe I might cover that case. Rhonda Glover, it may not be in our future. So just like that, he had shot, practiced the weapon and make sure that he got it down pat before he went then. So on June 20th, 2007, members of the Illinois Police Department, they seized the articles, found out he was shooting at the range. And the days before the quadruple, here's where he got crazy, where some of the evidence actually got him in trouble. So before the murder of the quadruple murder, let's talk about this. So a lot of people talk on, let me see, in the days before the quadruple murder, Christopher Vaughn had spent $5,000 in a suburban strip club where he had confided in a pole dancer, because they're the most, if you can't trust a stripper, who can you trust? Nothing against strippers, they have to have a job too. Hey, if I had some, I would do it if I was a woman for sure, especially a good looking one, no doubt about that. So strip club where he could find in a pole dancer that he was having material problems. Vaughn had told friends that he dreamed, like I said, escaping a rat race by moving to a remote cabin in Canada's Yukon territory, where he was telling the stripper he also stood to inherit, back to life insurance, $1 million in life insurance, and which always baffled me how people get life insurance policies and decide it'd be just kill him and nobody would think the wiser. So investigators believe that Vaughn had murdered his family because they stood between him and his desire to move into a new life. So that was his plan. And of course, it all failed miserably because he got found guilty of murder, of spending 4 years in prison, where right now that's where he rots at to this day. For hopefully, well, actually, he'll never get out because it's without parole, so he will never be getting out. And like I said, if you want to know where it's at, I posted on my Facebook page and Instagram page about where this location was at. And and like I said, it baffled me that this was not a well-covered case. But like I said, during the Drew Peterson was going on, it was kind of overshadowed by that. So there you have it, the case of Christopher Vaughn, who wanted to live out in the wilderness, with stripper, because later on he did try to get that stripper to move with him in Canada, and where he had took his wife and kids out to do that. And let's talk about them. Kimberly Vaughn was 34, Abigail Vaughn 12, Cassandra Vaughn at 11, and Blake, his son, at 8. So some people, I don't know. It's just best. I mean, if it came to that, he should have just left. There's no reason to take their lives just so he could live with strippers out in the Yukon and everything. It sounded like he had a pretty good life, but he decided that he had different plans. So if you do like that story, before I forget, I'm going to go to a part that I call the Bolo report, where a friend had shared with me earlier today. And right there in Quincy, Illinois, where we're talking about the Bolo Park. If you know what Bolo Park's, be on the lookout for. I'll post a picture on this on my social media page. So the Quincy Police Department is asking for help in locating a 12-year-old Carly Miller. She was last seen on March 13th wearing a gray, black, and white windbreaker and black and gray leggings and a blue and white shirt. Any information about this missing subject can be forwarded by contacting the Quincy Police Department at 217-228-4470. Like I said, she if you live anywhere near the Quincy, Illinois area, or even if you're a truck driver, listen to this, because it could be a truck driver who took her and be traveling around. But if you do, like I said, if you do listen to this and you live in the United States, go to my social media page where you can find this at Truck Stop Murder on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or myself at Gary.Howard5 is my, yeah, all three as well, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can just email me directly if you want to talk to me. But we're not talking about me. We're talking about this girl that needs to, find her way home. And with us, maybe we could help her get home. And I'll post that picture on social media. And as always, thank you for listening. If you like this, please go to iTunes or Stitcher and help promote this thing. Rate, review, and any platforms that you find fit that where you listen to. Let's spread this so I can keep this going on. I probably will keep this going on just because my wife likes this, and her name is Desiree Glover. Thank you, Desiree Glover. Desiree, for everything you do for me, help this me motivated. And next year will be 20 years that we've been together. So like I said, if you like that, please rate and review on iTunes. And always, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. And always remember, families first. The woods will wait. Sergeant Osborne out.